Welcome back. Dale Myers with Student Advance. Today we're going to make imaginary numbers easy. We're talking about what does I equal? So now, if you're having this question, you know that you're clearly in math. We're talking about what does I mean in math. So you're probably in Algebra 2, Advanced Algebra, Pre-Calculus, or Calculus itself. With no further ado, let's go back to what are imaginary numbers? So remember when you first began working with square roots that you knew that say I could take the square root of 4 and you know it was 2. And what we're saying is what number times itself would give me 4? Well, there were two choices, a positive 2, 2 times 2 would give me 4, and a negative 2, right? That's another way we could look at it. We could also have written this as the square root of 4 is the same as 2 squared. So we're taking the square root of 2 squared, or we could have said this is the square root of negative 2 squared. Either way. And remember, if something is up under the square root and I have 2 of them, like I have 2 here, the square root of 2 squared is 2. The square root of negative 2 squared is negative 2. Y'all with me? Now, well, that same rule applies. Again, only reason this works is because remember, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Okay, so that's not negative 4, that's still 4. All right. So you're saying, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That was middle school algebra. But what happens when I gave you the square root of negative 4? This is a problem because there is no number that you multiply by itself that will give you a negative number. Remember your rules for multiplying. Positive times positive is positive. Negative times negative is positive. So there's no number if you multiply it by itself that will give you a negative number. So to deal with this concept, we came up with the construct of I being the imaginary number, where I just happens to be equal to the square root of negative 1. So in our example, the square root of negative 4, we can actually rewrite this as 4 times negative 1. So this is all up under my radical here. 4 times negative 1. Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So that's really 2 times the square root of negative 1. But since earlier we said that I was equal to the square root of negative 1, this is 2 times the square root of negative 1. This is 2 times I. So I is simply the square root of negative 1. And so instead of writing that over and over and over, some mathematician way back in the day decided, you know what, it's simpler just to use it as just I. Let's clarify that a little bit. So again, if you have 7I, what you really have is 7 times I, but I is the same as the square root of negative 1. So really we could have written that as 7 times the square root of negative 1, but it's just easy to write that as 7I. If we had the square root of negative 49, well, this is the same as the square root of 49 times negative 1. Well, the square root of 49 is plus or minus 7 times negative 1, but we know that the square root of negative 1 is I. So this is 7I. Technically, it's plus or minus 7I. Making sense? All right. So hopefully at this point, you're good to go. The imaginary number in math is simply just a way to deal with taking the square root of negative numbers. The only thing we do is we take whatever square root we can and we multiply that times the negative 1, as we did 49 times negative 1, and we turn that square root of negative 1 into I. I is simply the square root of negative 1. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, like the video, and if you need some practice problems, head on over to studentadvance.com, and we should have some practice problems up. We are in the process of building the site out. So if it's not there, shoot me an email and I'll make sure that I will get that up for you ASAP. Again, Dale Myers with Student Advance. Take care.